Welcome to day 61 on the CDT. Another one of these creepy tent videos. It's 9:30 and interesting stuff. Here, let me see if I can get the light a little bit better. So when we were riding down in the shuttle to the border of New Mexico and Mexico, we talked about like itineraries and how we set things up. And one gentleman said that he set up his resupply strategy and his itinerary to be as flexible as possible to any types of change. We all thought that was a good idea, of course. But I don't think we fully comprehended it until they closed 3 national forests, and then the snow started melting early in the San Juans, and so then I think it really hit home of like, oh, that flexibility is really going to help that gentleman. And I can't remember how it came up, but somebody asked him a question, and he said, well, there's office planning and then there's trail planning. And he said office planning is when, you're sitting in your office and everything's hunky-dory. Trail planning is when you're actually on the trail and you have to plan around the actuals that are occurring. And last night, or yesterday, since I stopped a little bit early and I was in my tent avoiding the rain, I looked at my next segment after the resupply and I realized, oh man, you fell victim to office planning. And what I mean by that is the original plan was to hike into Copper Resort, take the free shuttle, the Summit County shuttle, over to Silverthorne, get my resupply, take a rest day, and then take the shuttle back to Copper and continue the hike. That's fine, except I looked at the mileage and what I was expecting after Copper, because my next resupply after that is Grand Lake up near Rocky Mountain National Park. That's about 140 miles. And my resupply to Silverthorne is 6 days of food. So 6 days into 140 miles, that would be an average of about 23 miles a day. That would be fine if I was hiking what I just hiked in the Sawash. But I'm not. Once I get back to Copper, I have to hike the ascent and then the descent of Copper over to Highway 91. And I may get a few of these details incorrect, but because I'm going off memory, but they're close. So once I hit Highway 91, then I have a huge ascent over the backside of Breck, and then a huge descent back down to Highway 9. And then from Highway 9, there's another huge ascent, and you start heading to the Front Range. And the Front Range is, I think, Argentine Pass, or I can't remember if you go over the peak. I think it's the pass. And then you follow a ridge, and then that ridge leads to Gray's Peak, a 14er. And then after you summit Gray's Peak, you then drop down and cross I-70, and then you immediately hike right back up because you're going towards James Peak and that group of mountains over there. And then once you pass James Peak, you drop into Grand Lake. That is a load of up and down. I mean, you got a 14er in there. You got the Copper Ascent, the Breckenridge Ascent, the Front Range Ascent, the 14er Ascent, the James Peak Ascent. Carrying 6 days of food over that is ridiculous. So far on the trail, not counting from the border to Lordsburg because I had way too much food, but when I came back to my senses, the most number of days of food that I've carried is 5. And that was miserable, but I had to do it in order to get from Pagosa Springs to Molass Lake Campground. That pack was also heavy because I had my micro spikes and my ice axe and a book and extra clothes. And so, some of that stuff is not going to be in my pack when I go up and over all the ascents I just mentioned. But 6 days of food, going up and over all those ascents and trying to hike 140 miles in 6 days with all those ascents is aggressive. It's office planning is what it is. So essentially, today I hiked 6.5 miles into Twin Lakes, and Twin Lakes, actually I hiked to Highway 82, and then I had to hike 1.2 miles into Twin Lakes and 1.2 miles out of Twin Lakes. And what I decided yesterday was I am going to go for some aggressive mileage, because the trail from Twin Lakes to to Copper, basically, it does have up and down, but the up and down's at a lower elevation, and it's not as aggressive as the Collegiate Peaks and the Saltwatch Range. So I can make some good miles. So what I decided is, instead of going to Copper, I'm going to go to Highway 9. So instead of having 57 miles in 3 days, I now have 72 miles in 3 days. So that started today. So that 8.8 miles of hiking into Twin Lakes and back to the trail, like, that doesn't count towards those 72 miles. So once I got back to the trail after Twin Lakes, that's when it started. So I hiked 29.2 miles total today. I hiked 20.4 miles towards the 72 miles. It was a long day. This is my longest mileage day, and I didn't do it in New Mexico on flats. I did it in Colorado with ups and downs, because even though, like I said, the ups and downs are a little bit more moderate, they're still there. You still got to climb them. You still got to descend. And as soon as you leave Twin Lakes, you hit an ascent, and then you have a descent, and then there's a second ascent and a descent, and then a third ascent and a descent. So that's what I did today after already hiking 8.8 miles. So again, the total was 29.2, and 20.4 of that's towards the 72 miles. So I can still dump Copper. Like, if I get to Copper and I realize, like, I just can't do these 72 miles, I can dump down into the village, grab the free shuttle, go over to Silverthorne, and then just be miserable carrying 6 days of food over all that ups and downs after Copper. Now, of course, I'm not going to do all those up and down in one day, so I'll be eating food, but the first 2 days when I'm carrying 6 and 5 days of food, it's just going to be miserable. So in order to pull this nonsense off, to make up for my office planning, I need to hike about 30 miles tomorrow. And then that would leave 22 miles on Wednesday. And there's a little saying that goes, if you want to hike 30 miles, you got to do 10 miles by 10 a.m., 20 miles by 2 p.m., and then you get the rest of the day to finish your 30 miles. So because of my resupply, like, it took an hour and a half-ish to do my resupply today. Like, I lost time today, and that's why I got to camp so late, and that's why it's 9:30 and I haven't even set up my tent and changed clothes yet. Like, everything else is finished: the water, the eating, the stretching, blah blah. So tomorrow I'll be able to not have that resupply. I'll just have to jump on trail and hopefully follow the guidelines of 10 by 10, 20 by 2, and then finish your 30. I will also try to follow those guidelines on Wednesday, when I hike hopefully into Highway 9 and then get to go to Silverthorne. So if I can do 10 by 10 and 20 by 2, then that means I'll be able to probably hitch a ride into Frisco and then catch the free bus over Silverthorne and hopefully get there before the post office closes. And because it's a holiday weekend, I actually already booked my hotel when I had service yesterday. So essentially it's just racing the mileage on Wednesday so I can get to the post office before it closes and sort through my resupply and not have to do it on my rest day. My lungs aren't happy again. My lungs aren't happy again because I just did 29 miles and they weren't expecting to do three ascents today. So even though they were lower ascents, I still had to go at a quick pace. So it felt like I was kind of running, half shuffling running, I don't know, up the ascent. So my lungs are a little bit unhappy. But they're getting stronger. Yay! So that's the crazy plan. I was able to get the 20 miles today, 30 miles tomorrow, knock on wood, I can get it done. And then I'll finish 22 miles, get to Highway 9. And what that'll do is, that'll remove 15 miles from my original plan. So instead of doing 140 miles, I'll do 125. And what that also means is I can cut back to 5 days of food for those 125 miles. And it's still aggressive, but with a lighter pack, it'll be easier to do those ascents. And that also means that in the first 2 days, I'll take my food from 5 down to 4 to 3. And so those last 3 days, I'll have to make up some mileage. I'm not expecting to average 25 for 5 days. I think the first 2 days will be a little bit lower. I have to see when Grace Peak is from Highway 9. I can't remember if it's day 2 or 3. I hope it's day 3. And if that's the case, then I'll have only 3 days of food to go over Grace Peak, which is manageable. That's what I hiked out of Twin Lakes with, and the pack weight feels okay. I'll also be able to dump my extra rainfly and my ice axe, and there's something else in my pack I can dump. I can't remember what it is. So if Grace Peak is day 3 and the last 2 days I just got to dump down I-70 and then go up and over James and into Grand Lake, I can make up some mileage with a lower weight pack because I only have 1 or 2 days of food. So that's the plan, making up for what is just a foolish office planning on my part. It was just an oversight. I wasn't paying attention to what I was about to hike when I was planning it, and I said, sure, I can put 6 days of food in there, and that's just nonsense. So that's why you got creepy video. That's why it's so late. I'm gonna, as soon as I get finished with this video, I'm gonna set up my tent and go right to bed. So it's a little bit late. It'll be like 10 o'clock when I get to bed, but if I can pull the 30 miles off tomorrow, then I think I can make up for my oversight in the office planning. So anywhoosie, I got to give a shout out today to the weather gods and Mother Nature. I think I mentioned in a previous video that 6 out of 8 days I'd either been rained on, or I'd been running from rain or dodging rain or running to blue skies, or some kind of precipitation was nearby, and it was just luck whether or not I was getting hit with it. Today, it's 7 out of 9 days. There was definitely precipitation in the area. There was actually a thunderstorm, and most of the day was actually stable. It was blue skies and sun, and at about 5 o'clock I heard the thunder, and the storm seemed to be right above me. So I thought I was gonna basically get drenched for the last 2 hours of the day. However, the wind shifted just a little bit and the storm shifted just south. So I was on the edge of it, so I did not get rain, but I know that some area got rain because I could see the precipitation once I got up a little bit higher in elevation. So shout out to Mother Nature and the weather gods for giving me a clean, dry hike today, because I definitely needed it after being rained on for the last few days. My equipment, like my tent and everything, like rainfly and a bunch of stuff was wet. So thankfully I got to take it out of the pack at lunch and dry it out a bit today. So I think that's it. I'll talk to you folks tomorrow to see if I can pull off that 30-mile nonsense, and if I can, that'll be my first 30-mile hike of this trip, and it'll be my longest day. It'll eclipse this one by 0.8 miles or whatever. So I hope everyone's well. Thanks for watching the video, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.